Hello, it's Michael. Welcome to week 5. So, thank you for everyone's contribution this week. It's been really interesting. I hope somehow the flow of how things work in Mural with the notifications, the comments, the postings, the many layers of information has been not overwhelming, but actually hopefully educational in a sense that you're seeing what others have done, learning from them. All that is very much important to me. As I might add some comments, I might even make a couple of mistakes here and there. Hopefully, we all end up in a place where we're collaborating and learning together. And this week, the subject was a couple of things. It was mainly HTML. So if you look at the arc of the project due on Sunday, that's called the pattern project. And the pattern is the next step in the pyramid, meaning there's something there that's repeatable, that's understandable, at least to a screen reader or something like that, or Google. So we're trying to make something that Google and or me and you can parse out. So this idea of a semantic HTML is readable, and hopefully the exploration of the tags and the limited nature of this was not overwhelming. And we did have a couple of questions just to make sure that everybody was okay with the fact that this did seem a little bit like quote unquote coding, but it really is just marking something up in the same way you would do in Microsoft Word. In fact, there was really no more ability in HTML besides some very basic things like headings and paragraphs and so forth. But now with these structural elements, the hope is that you're using those structural elements to group things together of some importance in your data compared to something else. So really it's that relationship that I'm looking for in the deliverable this week. So that being said, let me kind of tell you where we're at. So if everyone has contributed and gotten feedback, we will consider ourselves in pretty good shape with our HTML. If anyone has concerns or they haven't actually contributed, let's get that done. Because right now the hope is that whatever is here is pretty solid and ready to go. Because what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit more about this area. So if anyone took my example and used that as a template, that's great, even though I did make one mistake in there and I tried to correct that. I made up a tag. So I didn't alter that, but really I did put this thing at the very top of the page to start a conversation about what we'd like to add this week, and that is taxonomy. And taxonomy is looking at the entirety of your data, and looking meaning trying to parse in your mind what's going on. So let's say, for example, it went like this, that you went and you saw one page and the listings on that page were of interest to you and you used maybe a scraper or something like that to get some data. The important thing about that exercise is that you saw how the site that you got it from organized their data. Basically, what were they calling it? How were they putting it into pieces just as a template or, again, a kind of a starter. Then we added to it next week by thinking about, well, what more information could we get? And of course, trying to make sure that that information was not finite. So what you'll see toward the end of the class is that we're looking for a data set or a set of content that is infinitely repeatable. And even better, you'll see at the end of the class, not only infinitely repeatable, but something that people themselves contribute. So all the sites that we're going to explore in our final have to do with this concept. If somebody enters in a record, let's say we started with Twitter, that's one. I'm just going to tweet something. So how the information architecture works around that very vast and repeatable set of information is our goal. So we're taking baby steps. First step, take a look at it, maybe add something else to it to make it more valuable. So we're still trying to make this understandable and valuable to another person. A user, but we're not there yet. And now the goal of this week is to talk about a major level organization or taxonomy. So here we are. I'm calling it also nouns because next week we'll get to verbs. So nouns are usually words that are very descriptive. And what we'll look at here is some ideas of how you would organize based on these kind of nouns. There's a few amusing movie clips because organizing things can be very personal. Taxonomies are actually there so that everyone can understand what you're talking about. And there's some interesting science parts here. If you haven't heard of Linnaeus, he's a kind of a pioneer, not necessarily a pioneer, but one of the geniuses of our age that had actually come up with the way we describe most things in nature. And it was just something he made up. So taxonomies are made up by people through systems and study. And so right now there's some techniques. One basic one here. These articles all give you some idea. I would say some of them might be a little bit long, but right now, if you just want to take a look through here and decide, kind of take a look at what card sorting is, how people began the idea of classification schemes. There's also a really interesting one here. This is some research in how there's sort of non-traditional schemes. So if anyone's used to looking at Netflix where it says, here's movies with a strong female lead, those sort of classifications are a little bit harder to come up with. And in fact, the classifications themselves, here's a big headline, might not be in your data or are probably not present in your data now. And that's very important for this week that we make up ways to see your data. And many of you have already started this, and maybe you have concepts of how you'll organize the information in your to a user and how they'll navigate it. So you've already probably thought about it. Right now, I'd like you to just go to a site that maybe you're familiar with and look at how they've actually organized things. And this is an example right here from Apartment Therapy. So these are the taxonomy types, and here's examples of the taxonomy. So that's what I'd like you to look at another site just so you get a feel for how they've taken that data, gone one step higher, and been able to come up with some patterns. And that's what we're going to explore this week. And indeed, we'll get into that in the next example, which is, here's an interesting way back to perfumes. Here's another kind of an arty example. There's also a little sidebar about work stuff, because that's also of interest to me, is like if you're thinking about how you day-to-day organize things or how you organize things within a work environment, I think that's also telling, as to ways people come up with ways in order to speak the same language in order to organize content in their daily lives. And then finally, share the ideas of how you think your data is organized. What you might find is that many of you are working on similar things. So right now I'm just doing one movie for both sections. I don't see that there's a huge difference, but actually in each section, each of you is tackling a similar subject, which is perhaps a little bit awkward that you might not know that the other people are tackling the same topic. But I'll see that it's fine if you all are trying to organize a similar idea. I can probably come in and step in and help out with some ideas. So that's the goal for this week. On Sunday, you're going to turn in your HTML, and at the top of the page, some of these ideas may be set up as a list of possible organizations and or headings as we looked at the top of the page. Like if you're looking at a subset of data, which you are, there's only 3 records I think you need to mark up. But what got you to those 3 records? So it's really just a thought of what is a journey through this content in a, let's call it a noun. What are the ways that you can think of that could organize this at a higher level? And then as we move forward, we'll add more visualizations, sitemaps, etc. So this is still just an exercise in thinking and coming up with terms and concepts. Those terms, by the way, should also maybe be friendly and or interesting. So they don't have to be like library style fiction, nonfiction. In fact, that's really something I'd like you to avoid, which is a sort of a terse and or unfriendly way of organizing your content. So a little bit of creativity as well in terms of copywriting. I will again be very active, giving ideas, and hopefully again the sharing and stuff works well this week. So good luck. Oh, and as to the Blue Jeans session, if anyone is concerned about their HTML markup, it's not going to be very helpful to do a verbal meeting. I don't believe I would really want to look at the markup and do things individually, much as we did this week. So if anyone somehow was unable to participate, that's of concern. So if you can get me your HTML, link to it, looking at it is just much easier than doing some sort of a general discussion about it. You will do it on JS Fiddle and put it in Canvas as a link. If you wish to have any other comments, just use the comments area.